Hey, John Ty here, and welcome to this 4-part video series on how to become a best-selling nonfiction author in 30 days. This is video 2 and it's all about writing your book fast. So let's take a look at what we're covering in the series and in today's video. In video 1 we looked at the explosive growth of Kindle publishing, and if you haven't seen that video yet, I recommend you go back and watch that first. In this video, we're going to look at choosing a profitable niche so that you can maximize the chances your book will be successful before you even begin to write it. We're going to look at the 7 steps to writing your book fast, and we're going to look at how you can quickly and easily format and publish your book. Then in videos 3 and 4, we're going to look at getting your book found and noticed and launching your book and becoming a best-selling author. So let's dive straight into part 2, which is choosing a profitable niche. And the reason this is so important is because the last thing you want to do is write a book and then find out that there's no market for it. So what I'm going to do is show you how you can research the market in advance to make sure that that market has plenty of potential for sales, royalties, and lead generation. So let's start by looking at the most important niches in nonfiction. And in nonfiction, there are 3 mega niches. And these are health and fitness, money and business, and dating and relationships. And what you'll find is that most of the major niches in the nonfiction space are in fact sub-niches of one of the 3 mega niches. So let me give you a few examples. Business, making money, investment, self-help, dating, relationships, marriage, religion and spirituality, health, fitness, weight loss, nutrition. So just a few ideas there to get you thinking. That's very much a non-exhaustive list of some of the major niches, each of which fall underneath one of those 3 mega niches. Now, once you've got an idea or perhaps several ideas about what you want to write, you can start doing some research on Amazon. And that involves ethically spying on your competition. And I want to stress ethically here. We're not doing anything underhand. But what we are doing is a very important part of the research process, and you're going to need 3 things. First of all, you're going to need the book's Kindle sales rank. And when I talk about the book, I'm talking about books that are similar to the one that you're thinking of writing. Secondly, you're going to need to know that book's price and royalty. And all of this information you can get from the book's Kindle page. And then thirdly, you're going to need this table that I've put together that shows the approximate number of daily sales that a book is making based on its Kindle rank. For this example, I've taken the book Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy, which is a very successful book in the time management space. So let me take you through this worked example on how we work out the approximate royalties. And I want to stress approximate because, first of all, the numbers in the table are only approximate. And that's because the exact number of sales it takes to hit a certain Kindle rank on Amazon is constantly changing. Plus, secondly, Amazon updates each book's Kindle ranking on an hourly basis. So what we can realistically expect to do is to get a snapshot, but by getting a snapshot of several books in a particular category, we can get a really useful picture of how that category is likely to perform long term. So let's start with the book's ranking in the Kindle store. As you can see here, it's ranked at 1,130. And if we cross-reference that to the chart, we can see that that equates to around 125 sales a day, or around 3,750 sales per month. Now, the second piece of information we can get from that page is that the book is priced at $2.99. So from that, we know that the book is in the 70% royalty bracket. And the reason we know that is that books on Kindle that are priced between $2.99 and $9.99 get 70% royalties, whereas books priced outside that price range only get 35% royalties. So from this, we can work out that the book is making $2.09 in royalties per sale. Now, there will be a small download fee that Amazon charges to books in the 70% royalty bracket, but for a book like this, it's likely to be probably around 3 or 4 cents, so we won't worry about that for the moment. What this gives us is total royalties for this book of $7,830 a month. Now, I want to stress again that that is a best guess based on the information that we have, but just by doing this exercise, you can see very quickly that this niche has a lot of potential. And by the way, if you're interested, that would work out at royalties of $93,960 per year. Now let's contrast that with a book which is not successful, at least from a royalties point of view. And I want to stress here that I'm not talking about the book. It might be a great book. I haven't read it. I'm purely analyzing this from the point of view of royalties it's likely to generate. So here we have the example of the book The Manly Crafts, which at the time this screenshot was taken was #1 in the niche of leather crafting. And as we can see, it's got a Kindle rank of 25,257, which equates to about 3 or 4 sales a day, or around 100 a month. But in order to get those sales, they've had to discount the book to 99 cents, and that puts it down into the 35% royalty bracket. So that means each sale is only generating 35 cents in royalties. And that means total royalties of just $35 a month. And remember, this is for the #1 ranked book in this category. So again, very quickly, just by doing this exercise, which takes a few seconds, we can see that this particular category probably doesn't have a lot of potential when it comes to sales and royalties, and by extension, lead generation. So since time management looks like a much more promising category, let's go back to that and see how we can find all the information that we need. And the first thing to talk about is how to actually find the bestsellers in a particular category, because Amazon don't actually make that very easy for us. Now, there are a couple of ways of doing it. If you look on the left-hand side there at those arrows, you can see how we can sort of progressively drill down, starting with Kindle books, and then looking in the subcategories underneath that. But if you don't quite know where you're looking, that's a very difficult way to find a book. What's usually a lot easier is to do a keyword search. So in this case, we'd look for books on time management, or you might look up a book that you already know about, which is likely to be in that category. Once you've found a suitable book, scroll down that book's Kindle page and you'll see its ranking. And assuming it's in the top 100 books for a particular category or subcategory, that category will be listed there, and you'll be able to click on that, and that will take you to a page showing the top 100 bestsellers in that category. And what you'll see there is something like this screenshot. And what I like to do to get a good snapshot for that particular category is do the calculations we've just done for the books that are ranked at 1, 5, and 9. And what you can see here is at #1 we've got Eat That Frog, and we already know, we've done the calculation, that's bringing in around $7,830 per month. For the book that's ranked at #5, we can check the table and see that it's probably selling around 35 copies a day, which at that royalty is going to generate around $2,195 per month. And then for book #9, we can see that it's generating around $510 per month. And interestingly, just as an aside, the books that are ranked at 5 and 9 are both by the same author. And so that's a good example of the power of having multiple books in the same category and of using your books to cross-promote each other. Anyway, the point of doing all this is that very quickly we can see that this is a category which really has some potential, and you can do these calculations for all 3 books in about 5 minutes. So it's a very, very quick way both of helping you find the right category to put your book in, and also making sure that you avoid writing a book that's going to fit into a category where there are going to be very few sales. Something else which this exercise is very useful for is if you've got a book that can fit into multiple categories. Let's say there are 5 or 6 categories which make sense for your book. Amazon only allows you to choose 2. So you can go through this exercise for each of those prospective categories and see which 2 make the most sense for your book. So just how niche do you need to go? Well, as a rough guide, if a book has a Kindle ranking in the top 10,000, then it's going to be selling at least 10 copies a day. If a book is in the top 20,000 on Kindle, then it's likely to be selling at least 5 copies a day. And what I'm looking for within the top 10 of a particular category is, first of all, I would definitely like to see at least 2 or 3 books that are in the top 20,000 and therefore selling at least 5 copies a day. Ideally, I would also like to see at least 1 book that is in the top 10,000 and therefore selling 10 copies or more a day. So by going through these processes before you begin to write your book, you can make sure that you write a book that people are going to want to buy. Remember, there are hundreds of books we could write, but only a few that we can. It's a lot easier to come up with an idea for a book than it is to actually write it. So spend your time wisely. Now that we've looked at how to choose a profitable niche, let's move on to part 3, which is the 7 steps to writing your book fast. So what I'm going to share with you here is my 7-step writing system. And it's this system which allows you to get your book written so quickly. So let's go straight into step 1 of the system, which is to brainstorm and get your ideas on paper. So I'm sure you're familiar with the concept of brainstorming, and it's an essential first step to getting your book written quickly. So get all of the different ideas you have about your book out of your head and onto a piece of paper. And it's very important not to hold back during this process. Get everything down, make sure you don't miss anything, even if you're not sure about it, because if you decide you don't like something, you can always edit it out later. Now, something else that you can do which can really help with the brainstorming process is to list out the frequently asked questions on your subject. The next step is to come up with the most important SAQs, and that stands for should ask questions. And I have to give full credit for this idea to Mike Koenigs. Now, the difference between FAQs and SAQs is that should ask questions are the questions that your readers should be asking, but they don't know what they don't know. Whereas you, as the expert on the subject, can answer these questions for them. And that does two things. First of all, it gives tremendous extra value. And secondly, it really positions you as an expert on your subject. And just by going through this process alone and brainstorming the FAQs and the most important SAQs can provide you with a really powerful framework for your book. Step 2 is to highlight key ideas and themes. So this is really very simple. You've now got lots and lots of ideas down on paper from your brainstorming session. Your job is to review those brainstorming notes and highlight the key ideas and themes that emerge. And it's those key ideas and themes that are likely to form the basis for the chapters or the sections of your book. Step 3 is to chunk up your ideas. And this is an NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming concept. What you have at the end of step 2 is a piece of paper with lots of ideas on it, some of which you've highlighted. Now, this can be quite confusing, quite overwhelming. So what we're going to do here is to group together those ideas that relate to each other. This is the chunking up process. So for example, let's say you had 50 different ideas down after your brainstorming session. At the end of the chunking up process, you might have, say, 7 groups, each with 6 to 10 ideas. And so this process will take all those different ideas and turn them into something which is much less overwhelming. And it will further help you work out your book structure and how everything fits together. Step 4, once you've chunked up your ideas, is to mind map them. Now, there are plenty of software options, or you can go old school and use a pen and paper. Personally, I prefer software because once you've gone through the process of getting familiar with it, it's ultimately quicker and more flexible. There are lots of softwares out there. Mindapp.com is a very good version for PC. Mindnode.com is a very good version for Mac, but plenty to choose from. What you want to do with the mind mapping process is to map out the main sections of your book, if your book is going to be divided into sections, and then the chapters, and then the subsections. Once you've done that, review it, and then move things around until you're happy with them. And this process that we've covered so far in steps 1 to 4 of getting really clear on what's going to be in your book and how it's going to be organized, all 4 of these steps can easily be done in half a day, but they'll save you hours and hours and hours once it comes to writing your book. Step 5 is to speak your book, and this is where your mind map really comes into its own for you. Each branch or section of your mind map can be turned into a question for you to answer. And your job is to simply answer these questions as if you were having a conversation with someone. Now, this is a really important tip. Don't get tongue-tied and worry about getting your answers perfect, as they'll be edited, proofed, and polished later. And it's that process of editing, proofing, and polishing your book that will make it read as if it's been professionally written as opposed to simply being spoken. Now, the great thing about speaking your book is that it's so fast. We can easily speak 10,000 words per hour. And that's probably about the speed that I'm speaking at on this video. Now, when it comes to Kindle books, the sweet spot in terms of the return that you get for your investment of time is around 20 to 25,000 words. And when I talk about the return on your investment of time, I'm talking about the royalties earned and the leads generated. Now on this basis, your book can be spoken in as little as 2 to 3 hours. And that's not to say you can't have a longer book, simply to say that 20 to 25,000 words is a good length for a short Kindle book covering a specific niche subject area. Now, if you're going to speed things up by dictating your book, you've got two options. You can either record an MP3 file directly onto your computer, that's if you're using a transcription service, or you can use transcription software. Now, the software that I like to use is called Dragon Naturally Speaking, and there's a version of that for Mac and a version for PC. Unlike most software, it takes a little while to get used to it, but once you do, it's a very effective way of recording and transcribing your book. Step 6 is to get your book transcribed. Now the good news is if you've used transcription software, you've already completed this step. If you've recorded an MP3 and you're going to use a transcription service, the ones I recommend are Upwork.com, formerly Odesk, and Rev.com. And you should expect to pay around $1 per minute of transcription time. Once you've got your finished transcription, you can move on to step 7, which is to proof and edit your book. Now, the first part of this is to leave your book at least overnight and come back to it fresh and read through it yourself before you give it to anyone else. You're bound to pick up all sorts of things which you can fix immediately. The next step is to give it to other people who will pick up all sorts of things that you've missed. And this is where friends and family can be very useful. And they can also give you a steer as to whether there's anything in the book which doesn't quite make sense, because sometimes as experts we sort of assume knowledge which our readers may not have, so it's a great way of picking that kind of thing up. Next, I recommend you outsource the proofing and editing of your book, and you can use sites like Upwork that I mentioned, or Elance, or Craigslist. Last of all, always do a final proof yourself before you publish. Ultimately, it's your responsibility, not your editors, not your proofreaders, to make sure that the book that actually goes out is one that you're happy with. Now, the costs of editing and proofreading vary wildly. You could easily spend $2,000 per 10,000 words for major content editing. But here are my budget recommendations on a per 10,000 words basis. For proofreading, around $30. For basic copy editing, around $50 to $100. And copy editing is things like spelling, sentence structure, grammar, paragraphs, and so on. For copy editing and minor rewriting, restructuring, look at spending around $100 to $250. And then for content editing, which is typically much more substantive editing because it's dealing with the actual content of the book, look to spend around $250 to $400. And so you don't have to spend a fortune, you can get great results at these prices. Now let's move on to part 4, which is how you can easily and quickly format and publish your book. Formatting in particular seems to be an area that causes a lot of concern and confusion, but in fact, once you know what to do, it's really very simple. And the key here is to avoid what I call the Kindle formatting minefield. And one of the reasons people find formatting so confusing is that there are so many different options. And this screenshot shows just a few of them. Last time I checked, there were at least 15 different formats that you could use to publish a standard text-based Kindle book. So let's see if we can simplify things by looking at what Amazon recommends. And very simply, Amazon recommends either Word or HTML. And of these two options, Word is the quickest and easiest solution because you don't need to know any coding, and it's what I use for all of my books. And it's also available for both PC and Mac. Now, one of the big advantages of using Word is that although Word has tons and tons of functionality, Kindle only accepts a small fraction of that. So even if you're not a Word expert, there's actually very little that you need to learn. And when I write my books, I have a template set up which already includes that basic formatting. And so essentially my books format themselves as I write them. Now, having said that, if you still don't want to format your book yourself, you can outsource it very cheaply for around $10 per 10,000 words. And again, use the sites that I mentioned earlier. Now, once you've got your book formatted, what about publishing it? Well, for that, you're going to need a KDP or Kindle Direct Publishing account. And the good news here is that if you've got an Amazon account, you already have a KDP account. And the login details will be the same as they are for your Amazon account. And to sign into your KDP account, just go to kdp.amazon.com. Once you've logged into your KDP account, you'll need to click on the Bookshelf tab at the top of the page. You'll then see a box like this that says Create New Title together with a checklist. Now what you'll need to publish your book is of course the manuscript and a cover image. You'll also need to add a description, keyword and categories. And I'll talk more about those in video 3. Once you have everything you need, just click on the Create New Title button and that will open up a new page. And all you have to do is follow the steps on that page, adding the information that's requested. So for example, you'll add your title and then your subtitle. You'll copy and paste in your description, add your keywords. You'll then be asked to upload your cover image and then you'll be asked to upload your manuscript. And once your manuscript has finished uploading, you'll be able to preview it and make sure that it's going to look good on Kindle and that you haven't got any formatting errors. Once you've previewed your book and you're happy with it, you'll be asked to save it and then you'll be taken to a second page where you set up the royalties and pricing for your book. Once you've done that and you're happy with everything, all you have to do is check the box to confirm your rights and then click Save and Publish. Once you've done that, your book will normally take between 12 and 24 hours to go live on Kindle and be on sale worldwide through Amazon. And this whole process of publishing your book is really quick and simple. Once you have your manuscript ready, your cover image, your description and your keywords, you can do the whole thing in about 5 minutes. The longest part of the whole process is previewing your book to make sure that it's formatted correctly before you save and publish. So in this video we've looked at how to choose a profitable niche, the 7 steps to getting your book written fast, and how to quickly and easily format and publish your book. In the next video, which is video 3, we'll look at how to quickly and easily make sure your book sells and hits the bestseller lists. So what we'll be covering is getting your book found and noticed, and launching your book and becoming a best-selling author, and how you can easily do it in 30 days. So this is John Ty and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.